The rifle looked like garbage, stock cracked, barrel paint peeling, scope held on with what looked like duct tape. The old man carried it over his shoulder at Camp Pendleton shooting range, dress shirt and khakis, no uniform, just an ordinary old man with an ordinary broken rifle. The young Marines saw him. 3 of them, recent graduates preparing for Ranger School. "You serious, Grandpa?" One laughed. "You gonna shoot with that thing?" The old man didn't stop. Kept walking, rifle comfortable on his shoulder. "Look at that scope," another said. "It's not even mounted right. He can't hit shit with that." They laughed, they mocked, they dismissed him. Then the old man did something that made the entire range go silent. Hank Williams was 79 years old. White hair, weathered hands, careful movements. He came to Camp Pendleton Range every first Saturday of the month for 57 years. Same rifle. This morning started like always. He walked to the check-in desk, signed his name, selected his distance, 800 meters. The clerk, a young lance corporal named Martinez, looked at the rifle, raised an eyebrow. "Sir," he said carefully, "is that weapon safe?" "Safe," Hank said quietly. "It looks pretty old. It works." Martinez examined the rifle more closely. Stock cracked down the middle, but he could see internal pins reinforcing it. Professional work. Barrel worn but solid. Safety functional. "Unconventional," Martinez muttered, "but mechanically sound. Lane 12. Hank nodded, started walking toward the firing line. That's when the Marines noticed him. Corporal Jake Morrison, 24, 2 deployments, sniper school qualified, was zeroing his M40A5 when he saw the old man walk past. The rifle caught his attention immediately, not the good kind of attention. "Holy shit," Morrison said to the Marine next to him, Sergeant Ben Cruz. "Look at that thing." Cruz looked, started grinning. "Is that held together with tape?" "I think so." A third Marine, Private First Class Tommy Ward, 19, fresh from boot, leaned over. "That can't be legal," Ward said. "It's legal," Morrison said. "Just embarrassing." They watched Hank set up at lane 12. He moved slowly, methodically, laid the rifle on the bench, adjusted the scope, checked the chamber. "He's going to hurt himself," Cruz said. "Or someone else," Ward added. Morrison walked over, not to be mean, just concerned. That rifle looked dangerous. "Excuse me, sir," Morrison said, approaching lane 12. "Mind if I take a look at your weapon?" Hank glanced at him. Didn't stop what he was doing. "You a range safety officer?" Hank asked. "No, sir. Just, that rifle looks like it's seen better days." "It has. Scope looks loose. It's not. Stock's cracked. Reinforced." Morrison hesitated. The old man wasn't being rude, just direct, matter of fact. "Where'd you get it?" Morrison asked. "Built it from parts. M14 receiver, custom barrel, modified stock. Started in '67, took 6 months to get it right." "You can do that?" "Could back then. Different rules." Morrison blinked. 1967, that was 57 years ago. "Sir, with respect, maybe you should use a range rifle. We've got M40s, M110s, all maintained, all zeroed." "I'm good." Hank chambered around, smooth, practiced. Morrison backed off. "Who's in lane 12? Reynolds asked. Cole checked his clipboard. "Hank Williams, civilian, regular." "How regular?" "Every month, 57 years according to the log." Reynolds looked through the spotting scope, saw the target, 5 shots, all center mass, tight grouping you could cover with a quarter. "What's he shooting?" "Custom rifle, looks homemade." Reynolds walked down to lane 12. Hank had just finished his 6th shot. "Sir," Reynolds said, approaching carefully. "Captain Reynolds, Rangemaster. Mind if I ask a few questions?" Hank looked up, set the rifle down. "Go ahead." "That's an impressive group at 800. "Thank you." "Where'd you train?" "Quantico, 1967. Reynolds paused. "Quantico, Marine Sniper School." "You served?" "Yes, sir." "Vietnam?" "Yes, sir." Reynolds looked at the rifle again, really looked. The wear wasn't damage, it was use. Decades of use. "This your service rifle?" "Modified version. Built it in Vietnam, rebuilt it stateside when I got home." "It's unconventional." "It works." Reynolds smiled slightly. I can see that. Mind if I ask? What's your best distance? Hank thought for a moment. Here, or in general? General. 2,100 meters. Con Tien, 1971. Reynolds' eyes widened. 2,100 meters. That was over a mile. In 1971, that was almost impossible. Confirmed? Reynolds asked. Confirmed. Word spread fast. By the time Hank finished his 10th shot, half the range had stopped to watch. Morrison approached Reynolds. Sir, who is that guy? Reynolds looked at Morrison, saw the embarrassment, the curiosity. You laughed at his rifle earlier, didn't you? Morrison's face flushed. Yes, sir. But that scope, the tape is weatherproofing, Reynolds said. Scope's mounted solid underneath. Been that way since 1972. That rifle has more recorded kills than most Marine battalions. Sir? That man, Reynolds said, pointing to Hank, is someone you should have shown more respect. Morrison looked at Hank. The old man was reloading, calm, unhurried. What's his name? Morrison asked. Hank Williams. The name didn't register. Morrison had studied sniper history. Never heard of Hank Williams. Reynolds looked at him, studied him. Then, my father served in Vietnam. K. San, 1968. His platoon got pinned down by NVA machine guns. Marine sniper took out 3 gunners from 800 meters, saved 23 men. He paused. My father spent 40 years wondering who that sniper was. Never got a name, just knew someone out there gave him another 40 years of life. Reynolds looked back at Hank. Maybe it wasn't your rifle that day. But it was someone like you, doing a job nobody thanks you for. That's why I care. Cruz and Ward had joined them. They'd heard everything. Why haven't we heard of him? Cruz asked. Word spread fast. By the time Hank finished his 10th shot, half the range had stopped to watch. Morrison approached Reynolds. Sir, who is that guy? Reynolds looked at Morrison, saw the embarrassment, the curiosity. You laughed at his rifle earlier, didn't you? Morrison's face flushed. Yes, sir. But that scope, the tape is weatherproofing, Reynolds said. Scope's mounted solid underneath. Been that way since 1972. That rifle has more recorded kills than most Marine battalions. Sir? That man, Reynolds said, pointing to Hank, is someone you should have shown more respect. Morrison looked at Hank. The old man was reloading, calm, unhurried. What's his name? Morrison asked. Hank Williams. The name didn't register. Morrison had studied sniper history. Never heard of Hank Williams. Reynolds looked at him, studied him. Then, my father served in Vietnam. K. San, 1968. His platoon got pinned down by NVA machine guns. Marine sniper took out 3 gunners from 800 meters, saved 23 men. He paused. My father spent 40 years wondering who that sniper was. Never got a name. Just knew someone out there gave him another 40 years of life. Reynolds looked back at Hank. Maybe it wasn't your rifle that day. But it was someone like you. Doing a job nobody thanks you for. That's why I care. Cruz and Ward had joined them. They'd heard everything. Why haven't we heard of him? Cruz asked. After Hank finished his string, 12 shots, all center mass 800 meters, Reynolds made a decision. Mr. Williams, Reynolds said, would you be willing to shoot at 1,200 meters? Hank looked at him. You asking as rangemaster or as a Marine? Both, Hank smiled. All right. Reynolds keyed his radio. Control, set lane 12 target at 1,200 meters. The Marines gathered closer. This was unheard of. 1,200 meters with a homemade rifle that looked like it survived a war. It had. Hank adjusted his position, checked the wind, looked at the mirage shimmering downrange. Morrison watched the 3 shots at 1,200 meters. All hits. Impressive. But still, maybe luck? 3 good shots didn't prove mastery. Sir, Morrison said quietly to Reynolds, 3 shots. Could be. Could be what? Reynolds cut him off. Coincidence. At 1,200 meters, with a rifle held together with tape, Morrison hesitated. You want to bet your next paycheck that he misses at 1,500? Reynolds asked. Morrison looked at Hank. The old man was reloading, calm, methodical. "No, sir," Morrison said quietly. "Then shut up and watch." Hank chambered around, settled in. The shot echoed. 5 seconds later, Cole's voice. "Lane 12, impact, center mass." The Marines erupted, cheers, disbelief. Morrison just stared. After 3 more shots at 1,200, all hits, Reynolds made another call. "Control, set lane 12 at 1,500 meters. 1,500 meters, nearly a mile. The edge of what M40s could reliably do, and that was with modern optics, modern ammunition, perfect conditions. Hank's rifle looked like it belonged in a museum. "Sir," Morrison said to Reynolds, "is this safe?" "That scope has been calibrated more times than you've been alive," Reynolds interrupted. "And if you doubt this man's ability one more time, you're doing push-ups until sunset." Morrison shut up. Hank took his time. Wind was picking up. Crosswind, maybe 3 miles per hour. He adjusted, elevated, breathed, the shot. Longer wait this time. The bullet was in flight for over 2 seconds. Then Cole's voice, almost reverent. "Lane 12, hit, slightly left of center, still kill zone." Hank worked the bolt, adjusted, fired again. "Lane 12, center mass, 1 more. Lane 12, center mass." The range was silent, every Marine watching, some recording on phones. When Hank finished, he stood, safed his rifle, started packing. Reynolds walked over, extended his hand. "Mr. Williams, that was extraordinary." Hank shook his hand. "Just practice." "That's not just practice. That's mastery." Hank shrugged. "Had a good teacher." Morrison approached, hesitated. Then, "Sir, I owe you an apology." Hank looked at him. "For what?" "I laughed at your rifle, called it trash." "It looks like trash," Hank said simply. "Don't apologize for seeing what's in front of you." "But you didn't know. Now you do." Morrison nodded. "Can I ask, why don't you get a new rifle? Modern one?" Hank looked at the weapon in his hands, worn stock, faded barrel, taped scope. "This rifle saved my life more times than I can count," Hank said quietly. "I'm not trading it for something that doesn't know me." Reynolds made an offer. "Mr. Williams, would you be willing to talk to my Marines, share some of your experience?" Hank hesitated. "I don't usually—" "Please," Morrison interjected. "We'd learn a lot." Hank looked at the young faces, eager, respectful now. He remembered being that young, that eager. "All right," Hank said, "but somewhere I can sit." "My knees aren't what they were." 10 minutes later, Hank sat on a bench with 20 Marines gathered around, rifle across his lap, Reynolds standing nearby. "I'm not a speaker," Hank began. "I'm a shooter. So ask questions, and I'll answer." Morrison's hand went up immediately. "Why'd you build your own rifle?" "Didn't trust standard issue. M14 was accurate but heavy. M16 was light but not precise enough for distance work. So I took an M14 receiver, had a custom barrel made stateside, modified a competition stock, built something in between." "How'd you get away with that?" Ward asked. "My CO believed in results over regulations. As long as I hit targets, he didn't ask questions about the rifle." "When?" "Started in 67, took 6 months to get it balanced right, used it from 68 till I came home in 72. "How'd you keep it?" Cruz asked. "Thought you had to turn in your weapon." Hank smiled slightly. "You do?" "Officially, this rifle was damaged beyond repair in a firefight. My CO wrote it up for disposal. The armorer, good friend of mine, he looked the other way when I kept the scrap receiver and some parts, rebuilt it stateside with civilian components." He tapped the stock. "Technically, this isn't the same rifle that went to Vietnam. Legally, it's a civilian rebuild, but the heart of it, the receiver, the barrel, that's original." Ward raised his hand. "You said 247 confirmed. What does that mean? Who confirmed them?" Hank was quiet for a moment. "Every kill was logged, had a spotter, different guys rotated through. They'd verify the target dropped. Company commander would review the log weekly, cross-check with enemy activity reports. They kept meticulous records because snipers were controversial. Had to justify our existence, show we weren't just cowboys." Why controversial? Cruz asked. Some people thought it wasn't honorable. Shooting someone who doesn't see you coming. But war isn't about honor. It's about protecting your people. He paused. 247 is the official number, the one the Corps recorded. But there were others, unconfirmed. I counted 23 more, times when there wasn't a spotter or the enemy dragged the body away before we could verify. Corps couldn't confirm them, so they don't count officially. 247 confirmed kills, Morrison said carefully. How do you carry that? Hank met his eyes, held them. You don't ask easy questions. Morrison waited. Hank looked down at his hands, weathered, old. I carry 247 faces, everyone. Some nights I see them, not often anymore, but sometimes. Young guys probably had families, probably scared like I was. He looked back up. But I also carry the Marines who went home because of those 247. The ambushes that didn't happen, the convoys that got through, the fire bases that held. You want to know how I sleep? Some nights I don't. But most nights, I remember the letters, wives thanking me, kids who still have fathers. He tapped the rifle. Both things are true. I regret every face, and I'd do it again to save my Marines. That's the weight. Reynolds asked the next question. You've been coming here every first Saturday for 57 years. How has nobody recognized you before? Nobody noticed the record? Hank smiled slightly. Oh, people noticed. Rangemasters over the years. They'd see my scores, ask questions. I'd answer vaguely, move on. Most don't push. He looked at Reynolds. But today you didn't just ask. You invited me to teach. That's why we're here. Why haven't we heard of you? Morrison pressed. 247 confirmed puts you in the top 10 Marine snipers in history. Because I asked them not to publish it, Hank said. Why? Because in 1973, when I came home, people were spitting on Marines at airports, calling us baby killers, war criminals. The last thing I wanted was my name in a newspaper with a body count attached. He paused. And because I had someone waiting. She became my wife. We had 2 kids, 3 grandkids now. She passed 6 years ago. Cancer. The kids are grown, living their own lives out east. His hand rested on the rifle. This rifle. It's my connection to who I was. To the Marines I saved. My wife understood that. Never asked me to stop coming here. He looked at Ward. If I'd been famous, book deals, interviews, all that, I don't have that quiet life. Don't have 52 years with the woman I loved. I chose right. After, Reynolds made another request. Mr. Williams, would you consider doing a demonstration, teaching these Marines some technique? Hank looked at the eager faces, nodded slowly. All right. But I'm old. Can't do this all day. They moved back to the range. Hank had Morrison set up next to him, lane 12 and 13, both at 1,000 meters. Shoot your best, Hank said. Don't think about me. Just shoot like you normally would. Morrison set up. M40A5, modern optics, perfect conditions. He fired 5 shots, good grouping, all in the kill zone, spread about 6 inches. Good shooting, Hank said. Now watch. Hank fired 5 shots, same distance, grouping the size of a golf ball. How? Morrison asked, still skeptical. That stock's cracked. The scope looks jury-rigged. How do you shoot that accurately? Because I know this rifle, Hank said. Every flaw, every quirk. The crack doesn't matter. It's reinforced. The tape protects the scope seal, doesn't affect zero. And the barrel's been recrowned 3 times to maintain accuracy. He looked at Morrison. You think new is better. Sometimes old and maintained beats new and untested. Morrison tried the technique. Next 5 shots. Grouping tightened to 4 inches. Better, Hank said, but you're still fighting the rifle. Let it do the work. Morrison adjusted again. 3-inch group. Hank nodded approval, then moved to work with Cruz. For the next 40 minutes, Hank worked with individual Marines. He started with Cruz. Wind reading. See the mirage? Hank pointed downrange. Angled right means crosswind. The more angle, the stronger the wind. Crews adjusted, fired, hit closer to center than ever before. Morrison was next, breathing. "You're holding too long." Hold creates tension, Hank demonstrated. Natural pause. No force. Morrison tried it. Grouping tightened by 2 inches. Ward struggled with trigger control, jerking. Hank had him dry fire 20 times. Feel that? Smooth press, surprise break. Next group, tighter. One by one, Hank gave each Marine a single correction. Small, specific, immediate improvement. By the time he finished, every Marine had learned something they'd carry for the rest of their shooting career. As the session wound down, Ward asked the question everyone was thinking. "Sir, why do you still come here?" "You've got nothing to prove." Hank looked at his rifle, ran his hand along the worn stock. "This rifle and I spent 5 years keeping each other alive. I come here to make sure it remembers, and to make sure I do, too." He looked at the young Marines. "You're all learning to shoot." "That's good. But shooting isn't the hard part. The hard part is deciding when not to." He stood, joints creaking. "I took 247 lives. I'm proud of exactly 0 of them, but I'm grateful for the lives they saved. Remember that. Every trigger pull has a consequence. Make sure it's the right one." The Marines stood. Without being told, they formed up, came to attention. Morrison saluted. "Thank you, sir." Hank returned the salute, slowly, properly. "Semper Fi," Hank said quietly. "Semper Fi," they responded in unison. After Hank left, Reynolds pulled Morrison aside. "You learned something today," Reynolds said. "Yes, sir." "What?" Morrison thought about it. "Don't judge equipment by appearance." "That's part of it. What else?" "Respect the old Marines." "Closer." "But the real lesson?" Morrison shook his head. "The lesson," Reynolds said, "is that skill doesn't need validation. Hank Williams is one of the deadliest snipers in Marine Corps history, and nobody knows his name. He doesn't care. He's not here for recognition. He's here because he made a promise to his rifle, and to himself." Reynolds looked toward where Hank had parked his truck. Already gone. That man could have been a celebrity. Book deals, movies, Medal of Honor probably. He chose a quiet life because he understood something most people don't. "What's that?" "Real warriors don't need an audience." 6 weeks later, Morrison was at the range again. Saw the familiar truck, Hank's. He walked over. Hank was setting up in lane 12, same rifle. "Mr. Williams," Morrison said, "mind if I shoot next to you?" Hank looked at him, smiled slightly. Free country. Morrison set up in lane 13. They shot in silence for 20 minutes. Morrison's groupings were noticeably tighter. He'd been practicing. After, they packed up together. "You've improved," Hank said. "Had a good teacher." Hank grunted, zipped his rifle case, started walking toward his truck. Morrison followed. "Sir, can I ask, do you ever regret it? The war?" Hank stopped, turned, looked at Morrison for a long moment. "Every day I regret 247 faces, but not the protecting. If I hadn't been there, more Marines die. That's not regret. That's consequence." He opened his truck door. "The war was wrong, Morrison. But that doesn't make what I did wrong. Both things are true. Learn to live with complexity. That's the real lesson." Morrison nodded slowly. "See you next month?" Morrison asked. Hank looked back. "First Saturday, always." 3 months after their first meeting, Reynolds received a package. Inside, a black and white photo. 5 Marines in Vietnam jungle fatigues, one holding a rifle. Younger, newer, but unmistakable. Hank's rifle. On the back, handwritten, 1968, Firebase Carson. The day it saved us all. H.W. Reynolds framed it, hung it in the range office, added a plaque beneath, "Judge warriors by their actions, not their equipment. This rifle, 247 confirmed, 0 malfunctions, 57 years of faithful service, Camp Pendleton." The photo spread. Marines would stop, read the plaque, ask about the old man. Rangemasters would tell the story. The broken rifle that wasn't broken. The legend who chose quiet. Some tried to find Hank, learn from him, but he only came first Saturdays, and he never stayed long. Today, Hank Williams is 79 years old. He still shoots every first Saturday, still carries the rifle he built in 1967. The stock is more cracked now, the barrel more worn. The scope has been retaped 100 times, but it still shoots straight. Last month, a new Marine, fresh from boot camp, saw Hank at the range, started to laugh at the rifle. His sergeant stopped him. "See that old man?" the sergeant said. "That's Hank Williams. That rifle has more combat time than everyone on this range combined. So shut your mouth, watch, and learn." The young Marine watched. He learned. The rifle that looked like garbage taught another generation what real skill looks like. And somewhere in a gun safe at Hank's house, there's a letter from the Commandant of the Marine Corps, dated 1973. It reads, "Your record will remain classified, as requested. But know this, the Corps doesn't forget. And neither do the Marines you saved. Semper Fidelis. Hank keeps it folded, never shows anyone, because real warriors don't need an audience. They just need to keep their promises.